President Donald J. Trump just finished his speech to the United Nations. And if you're a globalist and a lover of mass uncontrolled migration and no borders, you're very unhappy today. It was a barn burner, and we're going to show you the highlights coming up in just a second. Plus, Kamala Harris, bless her heart, her book is out today, so she's doing a big media tour, and it ain't going well for word salad, madam. We're going to show you all the highlights and lowlights. Plus, the Senate trying to sneak a shady little bill into the Defense Authorization Act without any hearings, without any separate votes, and it could very well screw up all of your credit card transactions. We're going to get to the details of all that and more coming up right now. Hey, we're back after a day off. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Thank you for watching, and thank you for liking this video. In fact, if everybody just hits that thumbs up right now and gives us the like, no matter what platform you're watching on, well, this episode will actually start skyrocketing. That would be fantastic. And even better, if you can go into the live chat and you can say what you like best about my set, that would be phenomenal. Do you like the books on the shelf? Do you like the elephant? Do you like the portrait of the dog dressed like a Prussian military general of the 19th century? Whatever it is you like about our set, tell us your favorite thing in the chat right now, and that'll help our show, believe it or not. Thank you for your attention to this matter. When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think, hey, maybe now I might want to get off my butt and buy some gold? Whether as a hedge against inflation or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold, and they want to make it easy for you. Until September 30th, that means you've only got 1 week left on this offer, guys. If you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start that process, request an info kit now. Just text Larry to 989898. That's my name, Larry, to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still going to be eligible for that rebate in free metals of up to $10,000. Make right now the time you finally contact Birch Gold. You know you've been thinking about it. Take advantage of a rebate of up to $10,000 when you buy by September 30th. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. That's Larry to 989898. Do that today. Well, Donald Trump just finished his speech at the UN. It's been much anticipated. And, well, let me just say, he asked one of the most fundamental questions that we should have been asking for the last couple of decades. What the hell are we doing here? Why are you people even here? You don't accomplish a damn thing. What's the point of the UN at this point? I'm going to show you that stunning moment coming up in just a sec. But first, things started a little, well, shaky. There was a little technical snafu, and Trump handled it with the aplomb and humor and poise that only a top-rated television star could do. Watch this moment when, as he's about to give his speech on the world stage, his teleprompter doesn't work. Oh, my.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it. And I don't mind making the speech without a teleprompter because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you, nevertheless. And that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
How great is that? And can you imagine if that happened to Biden or Kamala Harris? I mean, no, there would be smoke coming out of the ears and there would be a complete and total fritz and meltdown. But this guy, what a pro. And I just want to show, watch this one look that he gives. I don't know if it's like if the tech team is over to his right or maybe it's the U.S. delegation. I'm not sure. But when he reveals that the teleprompter is not working. Watch his eyes.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it. And I don't mind making the speech without a teleprompter because the teleprompter is not working.
Did you see that? Look at the look. The man is not pleased. The man is not pleased. And yes, whoever is in charge of the teleprompter, how did he put it, is in big trouble.
I feel very happy to be up here with you, nevertheless. And that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
Fantastic. Well, teleprompter or not, President Trump did deliver his remarks, and he hit on a lot of themes that won him the presidency here. And I don't know if you've noticed, it happens sometimes in our live chat and in our comments. If you read through the comments, if you're watching our show on demand, you often see people from other countries, from Europe, from England, from Australia, from France, from the Netherlands, from Scandinavia, who say in our chat, in our comments, we're so jealous that you have President Trump. We need President Trump here. We need to make Holland great again. We need to make England great again. They are yearning for a leader who will also talk about secure borders, who will expose the reality when it comes to mass, unmitigated, and uncontrolled migration. President Trump brought those issues to the world stage today at the UN, and he began with a fundamental question. With all the war, with all the strife, with all the turmoil, every time something happens, you all turn to us to fix the problem, or I have to go in and fix the problem without any of your help. So let me ask, why do we even have a UN at this point? He said that to their faces.
Do you have that clip, Larry?
I'm so sorry. I was enjoying watching it, but perhaps you would like to see it as well. I'm thrown off because every clip looks the same with that damn green marble behind him. So I thought in my corner of my eye that you already had it. All right, let's go to it.
I didn't think of it at the time because I was too busy working to save millions of lives. That is the saving and stopping of these wars. But later I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. The only thing that solves war and wars is action. Now, after ending all of these wars and also earlier negotiating the Abraham Accords, which is a very big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements. But for me, the real prize will be the sons and daughters who live to grow up with the mothers and fathers, because millions of people are no longer being killed in endless and unglorious wars. What I care about is not winning prizes, it's saving lives. We saved millions and millions of lives with the 7 wars. And we have others that we're working on, and you know that.
But it is an important point to make that we were told 80 years ago in the formation of the United Nations that we would end global conflict. And whenever there were regional wars, well, it would be the UN and the Security Council and all the efforts by the diplomats in New York, navel gazing and spending a lot of money on their expense accounts and buying hookers on the west side by the Lincoln Tunnel, allegedly, that would somehow keep us out of conflicts. And that if you look at the last several months from the Trump administration's efforts, whether it was in Africa or whether it was in Europe or Eastern Europe, whether it was in Asia, wherever they've been able to engage, whether it was with Iran or with Israel and other Arab nations. They've been able to form peace. They've been able to end conflicts, and the UN was nowhere to be found. So what's the point? And listen, people could say, well, listen, the problem is we have the Security Council and Russia has a permanent seat and China has a permanent seat, so they can veto things. And so that's going to be a problem. And so it's like, okay, that means that the model and structure of the UN that was created coming out of World War II, giving the then Soviet Union and China permanent seats on the Security Council, that model is broken. It doesn't work anymore based on the world as we have it now. May have made sense coming out of World War II, doesn't make sense now. So what the hell is the point? We've all thought it. We've all said it to each other. He walked in there and said it to them and forced them to actually justify their existence, forced them to actually defend, forced them maybe to actually step up and bring something other than platitudes and empty words and do something to fix these problems instead of demanding that the U.S. do it. And then he started going issue by issue, starting with mass migration.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net. We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well. You have to do that because I see it. I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I could call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody is ever, and nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Incredible courage and, cojones to stand up in that podium in front of the United Nations and tell them exactly what you just heard. And most specifically, to accuse the United Nations rightly of funding mass rampant global migration that has so affected the United States and so affected Western Europe. It's called the International Organization for Migration. It's a UN agency and it's funded by them, which of course means it's funded by the United States of America, through our direct contributions to the United Nations and also through USAID and other non-government organizations. There's also, of course, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, which influences and sometimes even dictates international refugee policies, which of course means that rich, prosperous, mostly Western civilization nations need to take on the dregs of society from failed countries and take them as refugees, not because their nation is war-torn, not because of a natural disaster, not because of some famine or drought or an act of God, just because you're a rich, prosperous country, and this is a country in poverty or has a brutal dictator or whatever the reason. If people escape and they flee in boats by the tens of thousands, you must take them, no questions asked. That's the United Nations, and it's got to end. And most citizens, tax-paying citizens of those countries, have had enough. Trump then pivoted from that point and specifically addressed the idea that nations are allowed to have borders and they're allowed to secure those borders, something that those pinheads at the United Nations don't believe.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration. Once we started detaining and deporting everyone who crossed the border and removing illegal aliens from the United States, they simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore. This was a humanitarian act for all involved because on the trips up, thousands of people a week were dying. Women were being raped. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Raped, horribly beaten, raped. On the trip up, the journey up, it was a long walk. It was a long, arduous journey, indeed. And it was also a historic victory against human trafficking throughout the region. What we did was a victory, and we saved so many lives of people that wouldn't make the journey. That journey was loaded up with death. Loaded up with death. Dead bodies all along the roads of jungles to get up. They go through jungles. They go through areas so hot you couldn't breathe. They were dying of suffocation. Areas so hot that you couldn't breathe. Dead bodies all over.
I admire the fact that President Trump feels free and confident to just freewheel and go off teleprompter, even when delivering a speech to the United Nations. And I love the fact that he just made the case that those of you who encourage an open border policy and encourage the mass migration of individuals from impoverished nations to the United States under the guise of being refugees, which of course they are not. They do not deserve refugee status, and they are not refugees in this country, but it takes them 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years to actually have their refugee status adjudicated in an immigration court. And by that time, they've been here 10 years under their protective status. That has ended now because we're securing our borders and we're not accepting anybody who claims that they're a refugee, number one. But number two, anybody who was in favor of that policy actually favored immoral, inhumane conditions, not just what he just described for the millions of people who made that 1,000+ mile journey across Mexico from Guatemala, Honduras, or wherever else they came on behalf of human traffickers and drug traffickers and warlords, but also if you favored them making that trek under those horrible conditions with the sexual exploitation and child exploitation that we tragically have seen. If they did make it into this country, you also favored them being exploited as cheap labor at the hands of major corporations who exploit these people who are in the country illegally because they know they can get them for substandard work conditions and money. And we're supposed to take a back seat on virtue and empathy to these monsters who created the conditions and support the conditions that led to these inhumane conditions? Don't you dare take a backseat to them. President Trump and those who support him and his secure border policies are actually acting in a humane way to see that these conditions end. And by the way, that also helps those who are genuine refugees not get bogged down and delayed in getting their refugee status because they're waiting behind a broken system of millions of people illegally and untruthfully claiming refugee status. Because then the genuine refugees are left in the dust or waiting years and years and years before they can get their status because they're trying to do it the right way. And I'm glad that he actually called them out on the immorality of this issue. And then when you think of the UN, you think of that, you think of the human rights abuses under the guise of actually being champions of human rights. You think of open borders, you think of mass migration, you think of the fact that they sit on their butts and they don't do anything to actually solve the conflicts and wars in this country. They wait for the US to come in and solve it. And then there's the other thing they do. Demand that you stop driving SUVs or cars altogether and just take light rail because it's climate change, don't you know? Well, Trump called them out to their faces on that bull as well.
1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler. So now they could just call it climate change because that way they can't miss. It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling, all of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. They must take control strongly and immediately of the unmitigated immigration disaster and the fake energy catastrophe before it's too late. The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. Okay,
Wow. I don't know about you, but honestly, I have been waiting pretty much all my life for a president to bring these kind of truth bombs to the United Nations. And you can hear in the room, there was kind of stunned silence and awkward coughing as all of this was laid out. And by the way, half of these diplomats who push these bogus policies, they know that it's all bull, but no one's ever allowed to say it in person. No one's ever allowed to say it out loud. Now, I don't want you to think this entire speech was Donald Trump giving the rest of the world through the UN a lecture about everything that they're doing wrong and basically an existential throwdown saying, why the hell do you even exist? If you don't bring something to the table, perhaps we're going to walk out. He didn't go so far as to say that. In fact, I want to say that he left on a somewhat hopeful note here and understand something. When Trump first became president, the first time around 8 years ago, this was his stance toward NATO. And he said, guys, you're not coming to the table. You're not adhering to your agreements. You're not spending money on your defense as you're supposed to. You're assuming that the United States is going to do everything for you. And every time there's a problem, you look to us instead of NATO doing something together as a whole. Maybe we should pull out of this thing. And everyone went crazy. It's like, oh my God, he can't say that. He's going to let NATO collapse and then blah, blah, blah. But what ended up happening? The rest of the country sort of saw the writing on the wall. And by today now, 8 years later, they all are stepping up. And actually that strengthens NATO. It actually redoubles the resolve of NATO and reminds them of what they exist for in the first place. And now the countries are not even bringing just 2% of their GDP up to standard for military spending, but he's gotten them to more than double that to 5% of their GDP. Maybe Trump taking this stance with the UN will actually scare these people straight into redoubling their efforts as to why they're supposed to be there in the first place. And on that note, here's how Trump ended his speech.
Everybody in this room is a part of it in your own way. Each of us inherits the deeds and the myths, the triumphs, the legacies of our own heroes and founders who so bravely showed us the way. Our ancestors gave everything for homelands that they defended with pride, with sweat, with blood, with life, and with death. Now the righteous task of protecting the nations that they built belongs to each and every one of us. So together, let us uphold our sacred duty to our people and to our citizens. Let us protect their borders, ensure their safety, preserve their cultures, treasure, and traditions, and fight for their precious dreams and their cherished freedoms. And in friendship and really a beautiful vision, let us all work together to build a bright, beautiful planet, a planet that we all share, a planet of peace and a world that is richer, better, and more beautiful than ever before. That can happen. It will happen. It will happen, and I hope it can happen and start right now, right at this moment. We'll turn it around. We're going to make our countries better, safer, more beautiful. We're going to take care of our people. Thank you very much. It's been an honor. God bless the nations of the world. Thank you very much. Bye.
I like the bye. Bye. Bye-bye. Trump out. It was a good speech. It was a very good speech, and it was a historic speech, and it pissed off all the right people. What do you mean, Larry? What do you mean pissed off all the right people? Well, there's this person. Yeah, this person who would have liked to have been standing there in New York on the at Midtown East 42nd Street, right on the East River there. She would have loved to be standing in the United Nations giving the speech, but unfortunately she lost in a historic way in her presidential election. And instead, Kamala Harris was on the west side, a little further uptown, 59th Street, I believe, and 11th Avenue, where they tape The View. She's selling a book, don't you know? But the speech ended right around the time Kamala Harris walked out on set, and she said this about President Trump's speech.
What we just saw in terms of a presentation at the United Nations. But remember in the debate, they laughed at him the last time he was in front of the UN. Several weeks ago, that meeting with Xi and Kim Jong-un and Putin, you think they're not laughing?
Oh, they are.
As they create a new axis of partnership, you bring people into the Oval Office. I have spent a lot of time in the Oval Office. I have spent time in the Oval Office with the president, receiving our allies and our friends from around the world. And consistently, we have seen Donald Trump bring people into the Oval Office, be they a United States governor or the head of a state of a friendly nation, embarrass them and ridicule and demean them. That is not what a president does. This individual who occupies our White House right now has decided that he will be an emperor in his mind who will demonstrate his power by demeaning and belittling and making people feel small.
Did you notice, by the way, that she wouldn't actually call him the president? She just called him the person who occupies the White House. That's kind of dangerous election denial, insurrectionist sort of talk, isn't it? But what's this whole thing about the UN is laughing at President Trump? The world is laughing at President Trump. Wouldn't it be great if we actually had somebody in the room at the United Nations, observing what was going on in that room while President Trump gave that speech, so we don't have to rely on this person's description of the world's reaction? Well, I've got good news for you. In fact, we do have somebody in the room who was reporting on it. Part of the out-of-town press pool today following the president in New York is Town Hall Media. We are the new media press chair right now on that pool. And our friend, our colleague, our reporter, Katie Pavlich, is literally in the room at the United Nations as President Trump delivered those remarks. And she fact-checked the former vice president on her statement that the world was laughing at President Trump. Katie Pavlich said, actually, I'm here, and they're not laughing. They actually look kind of terrified. And Kamala Harris is right. That's not what a president does. But maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe that's exactly what the world needs right now, at least the other world leaders need. Maybe they should be terrified. Maybe it's about time they recognize that they can't do whatever the hell they want and take advantage of our generosity anymore. But you have your choice. You can believe Kamala Harris. After all, she seems pretty trustworthy. Or you can believe Katie Pavlich from Town Hall Media. Thank you, Katie, for that reporting on the scene. By the way, we're going to be taking care of your super chats as they come in here coming up after this next segment. So if you've got super chats or if you're bringing some super chats to the table, stay tuned. We're going to read all your super chats in just a sec. Kamala Harris really wanted to be president of the United States, but she only had 107 days to run her campaign. Poor thing. She lost in humiliating fashion, and now she's lying about it. But hey, she's got a book to sell after all. One of the biggest tidbits of that book is that she refused to pick the man she wanted to be her running mate, Pete Buttigieg, because he was gay. And for her very first interview to sell her book, she chose Rachel Maddow's show last night. Rachel Maddow's gay. And she wasn't real happy about that little tidbit from Kamala Harris's book. She asked her to her face about it, confronted her, and wait till you see Kamala Harris hem and ha and squirm. We'll show you that in a quick second. But first, let's get it started with this Rachel Maddow interview with this jewel from Kamala Harris.
We had a president of the United States running for re-election, 3.5 months from the election, decides not to run. The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years with 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
Okay, couple things here. First of all, if you're like me, you are sick and tired of this bullshit excuse from her. I only had 107 days after all. All right, so number one, you knew that. And you elbowed everybody else out of the way so you could take this nomination. You were handed a treasure chest of about $1 billion that Joe Biden had raised, not for you, but for himself. You forced everyone out of the race. You forced Biden to endorse you the day of his announcement. You pushed back on anybody like Nancy Pelosi or Gavin Newsom or Barack Obama who said, maybe we should just take a breath and maybe have a process that we can put together. Oh, no. You set the whole freaking thing on fire so you could take this nomination without any discussion. You took it by acclamation. Nobody in the last 100 years has been nominated president with such ease without having to lift a finger. And by the way, having that $1 billion war chest handed over to her. What would you rather? Have 100 days to run for president and not worry about primaries or caucuses or raising money? Or would you rather go through the arduous process of running for 2 years and having 15 people that you're running against? Give me a break. She had the red carpet rolled out for her, and she had the tiara put on her head. She didn't have to do a damn thing to run for president. Number one. Number two, well, I was running against a former president who'd really been running for 10 years. And, you left something out there, honey. You and your boss man, Joe Biden, and your whole party and your Justice Department convicted him of bogus felonies just so you could run around saying, he's a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon. You had special investigations after him by special prosecutors and the full weight of the Justice Department, plus the DA's office in New York, plus the DA's office in Atlanta. You impeached him twice. You tried to keep him off the ballot in multiple states. You fought that all the way to the Supreme Court to try to keep him off the ballot so the American people couldn't even have the chance to vote for him. And oh, by the way, you drummed up so many lies and so much hatred that you motivated two different people to try to put a bullet in his head. You left that out of your description of who you were running against, and you were so bad and so pathetic that you lost to that guy that you guys did all of that to. But there's one other thing that really bothers me. What was that last thing she said at the very end? I mean, we were facing all of those headwinds, and yet still.
And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
Wow, that doesn't sound right. I've been around for every presidential election of the 21st century. I've been a sentient being and an adult who has been engaged in politics for every single presidential election of the 21st century. And I'm challenging that. In fact, I'm going to challenge it right now. We're going to use Grok for it. Grok, what was the closest presidential election of the 21st century? Did I do a typo? No, that's a miracle. The U.S. Closest presidential election. Oh, of course. Bush versus Gore in 2000. I mean, that came down to like, what, 200 votes or something in Florida, right? In the Electoral College. And of course, and Gore even won the popular vote. Oh, but wait a minute. Sorry, Grok. See, sometimes Grok is wrong. You got to check on Grok. See, technically, that election happened in November of 2000. And I know this is pedantic and I hate to be that guy. But technically, the year 2000 was the last year of the 20th century. That's true. Look it up. Technically speaking, the 21st century did not begin until January 1st, 2001. All right. So maybe she has a point. Hang on. What was the second closest? Whoops. Oh, Grok has been doing this a lot lately. Second closest, here we go, was, Joe Biden and Donald Trump 2020. Huh. All right, hang on. What was the third closest? We're going to get there. Oh, come on, Grok. Third closest, here we go. Tell me the third closest. All right, it looks like 2016. Yeah, Trump, Hillary. Yep, 2016. There it is. Third closest. Okay. What was the fourth closest? Grok. It's fascinating, isn't it? Fourth closest was Bush-Kerry, 2004. This is not good for Kamala's assertion that hers was the closest, because we're now down to the fourth. What was the fifth? Maybe it was the fifth. Elon, fix Grok. Fifth closest. Wow, I would not have guessed that. 2012, Obama, Romney, but that makes sense. Electoral College was just 332 to 206. Okay. What was the sixth closest? Yeah, I figured that would happen. 2008. Obama, McCain. This is amazing. Seventh closest. Here, he's ranking them now. Thank you, Grok. I think by omission, here we go. I think it's 2024. There we go. Okay, so it was the 7th closest. Wait a second. There were only 7 presidential elections in the 21st century. I don't think we need artificial intelligence to determine now that Kamala Harris is a lying sack of shit. But I'm glad we went through that exercise together, aren't you? By the way, where was Rachel Maddow leaning forward saying, wait, what did you just say? It was only 8 months ago, honey. It wasn't close, let alone the closest. All right. And then here's the important part. This is, remember, just 10 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and just a couple of days, in fact, the next day, because this was last night, after Charlie Kirk's memorial. And there's been a lot of talk about tamping down the rhetoric and the heated accusations and creating a climate where a degenerate can pick up a gun and justify and rationalize murdering somebody for political purposes. And in that climate, in that setting, this wonderful, empathetic world leader, Kamala Harris, said this.
And right now we are dealing with, as I called him at my speech on the ellipse, a tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now, Donald Trump. And these titans of industry are not speaking up. And perhaps it is because his threats and the way he has used the weight of the federal government to take out vengeance on his critics is something that they fear, and I get that. I understand why they do. We've seen the demonstration of it.
There you go. Donald Trump is a tyrant, and she compares him to a communist dictator. Shockingly, later in the interview, when asked about Zohran Mamdani, literally a communist running for mayor, she didn't call him a communist. But Trump, he's like a communist dictator. All right, this brings me to my favorite part. Kamala Harris said in her book that she really wanted Pete Buttigieg to run, but she was afraid that the American people weren't ready for a gay man on the ticket, which ironically, she then picked Tim Walz. Okay. But then Rachel Maddow, who is gay, confronted Kamala Harris with this, because understand how damaging this is for her to say it. Number one, she says, basically, she said, yeah, he should have gotten the job, but he didn't get it because he's gay. Which, by the way, Kamala Harris, fine, go ahead. Thank you for being honest, I guess. But you try doing that when you're hiring at your small business, everybody. You might be faced with a lawsuit supported by the likes of Kamala Harris. Number one. Number two, Pete Buttigieg is running for president in 2028. So I'm sure he really appreciates the solid for Kamala Harris to go up there and say, yeah, the gay guy can't be elected. Maybe this is her sort of 5D chess of getting Buttigieg out of the race early so that she can get the nomination. Who knows? I don't think she's that smart to figure that out. But finally, she decides for her first interview to sit down with Rachel Maddow, who's gay. So Rachel Maddow, not very happy with this proclamation that Kamala Harris has made, confronts her to her face. And Kamala Harris, stoic, incredible, courageous, fearless leader that she is, squirmed and lied about it.
His reaction to that, since this part of the book has come out, if you've had any reflection on that, or I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president, you're a Black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president, to say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay. It's hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for president of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a Black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk.
All right, there's more to this. It gets even better. But think about what she's telling. Hey, I never said he couldn't be on the ticket. I was saying that we would lose if he was on the ticket. Get it straight, honey. And again, by the way, just understand what she's saying here. The foundation, the basis of all of this about Pete Buttigieg is about you. You see, she's not that. I'm not the bigot, Rachel. The American people are bigots. I don't hate gay people, Rachel. The American voter hates gay people. That she holds you in contempt. She hates you. She thinks very little of you, at the very least. And by the way, she thinks she's being smart and savvy and empathetic and really heartwarming, and she thinks she's selling books. I think she thinks wrong. But we'll let her finish because she keeps digging that big old hole.
No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about, yeah, right. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but.
No, wait. I'm sorry. I am going to let her finish, but I love that Rachel Maddow. This is how they get away with this crap. Hey, I've given the right speeches and said the right words. I've helped raise money for Human Rights Campaign and for GLAAD. Hey, I've gone out on marches. I've given speeches and said things that you people want me to say. What, you actually expect me to put my money where my mouth is? You expect me to actually put a gay person on the ticket with me? Oh, now you're asking too much. See, she thinks she deserves credit for like checking boxes and just, all the performative crap that a politician does. Oh, I've been an ally. No, I'm sorry. You're not an ally until the chips are down and you actually step up and do something. One of Donald Trump's closest advisors and allies, the first gay man to serve in a cabinet, was Richard Grenell, who continues to be one of the most powerful people in Washington, D.C., and he's openly gay. Don't tell me the American people can't handle it. And don't tell me what an ally you are, ma'am. It is a remarkable thing to witness here as this goes on. And Rachel Maddow should be ashamed of herself for playing along with this.
That
We had such a short period of time. And the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant. And I think America is and would be ready for that. But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was being too cautious, I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that. Maybe I was. But that's the decision I made, and I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
With a great deal of sadness about also the fact that it might have been a risk.
And again, by the way, at no point does Rachel Maddow lean into her, but I can't get over how bad people are when they're in the business of interviewing politicians and they don't know the news and they don't understand. Because see, here's the problem. Rachel Maddow's too close to this. Rachel Maddow loves Kamala Harris. Rachel Maddow loves the party. Rachel Maddow loves the agenda. Rachel Maddow loves the idea of having a woman in the White House who will make sure that women can kill their babies before they're born. That's all that matters to them. Or also so that children can be allowed to surgically alter their bodies forever. And at no point does Rachel Maddow lean in and say, okay, so you're telling me that you didn't pick Pete Buttigieg because you were afraid you might lose. And yet, ma'am, you lost. So when you say, oh, maybe we should question your judgment on that, well, hell yeah, we should. Did you ever think to yourself that maybe you would have won if you didn't have somebody like Tim Walz on the ticket? At no point does that ever filter through. Oh, it would have been too big a risk. Oh, yeah, because you might have lost. Wait, you did lose. And lost in there, by the way, was also her backhanded blaming Trump for this. Well, you know, it broke my heart, but it would have been too much of a risk because, after all, Trump, you know the way he campaigns. For God's sake, Donald Trump uses YMCA as his signature song. Are you kidding me? Honestly, Pete Buttigieg being gay is probably the most interesting thing about that guy. Let me just be clear here. This whole idea is like, well, if Pete Buttigieg weren't gay, I would have picked him as my running mate. Okay, just so we're clear, if Pete Buttigieg weren't gay, nobody would know his name. If Pete Buttigieg weren't gay, he would have never run for president or been taken seriously as a presidential candidate in the first place back in 2020 when he emerged amongst the pack as the mayor of the fourth largest city in Indiana. He would have never been the Secretary of Transportation with zero experience in the field if he weren't. So don't give me this whole if he weren't gay, he would have been my running mate. Because if he weren't gay, he would have never even been on the medium list, let alone the short list. These hypocrites, these absolute hateful hypocrites. All right, a little bit more from this amazing, stunning interview last night.
The part of your book that has people most upset thus far, which is some of your writing about the decision around the president abandoning his reelection campaign, the timing there and how it's handled. You say in part, page 46, it's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. Whose decision should that have been? How should that decision have been made?
So when I write this, it's because I realize that I have and had a certain responsibility that I should have followed through on. Which is, and so when I talk about the recklessness, as much as anything, I'm talking about myself. There was so much, as we know, at stake. And as I write, you know, the where my head was at the time is that it would come off as being completely self-serving.
If you said to President Biden that you did not think he should run again.
Yeah, or even that he should question whether it's a good idea. But I think that, you know, one of the reasons I wrote this book, Rachel, is there are actually a number of reasons.
We'll get to those reasons in a sec, but I have a quick comment on what you just heard. I couldn't bring it up with Joe. If I had told Joe that maybe he shouldn't run for re-election, it would be seen as self-serving for me. Interesting, funny. When we were told that they had a really close working relationship, that she was always the last person in the room, he always said how much great respect he had for her, that she was the most qualified person she'd ever met, that they worked so well together and had so much trust that they could finish each other's sentences. It was such a great working relationship. It's funny. I have a lot of people in my life who are like that. A lot of people that I live with, that I know, that are part of my life, that give me advice, that I work with, that give me advice, and I trust them implicitly. If I had relationships like that with those people, if Kamala Harris really had that relationship with Joe Biden, why would Joe Biden immediately be suspicious of Kamala Harris and think that her saying that would be self-serving? I mean, if they really have the relationship we were told they had, if they really worked that well together with so much mutual respect and trust, she's sort of undermining her own arguments about what a great relationship she and Biden had. The vice president should be able to tell the president anything if they're that close an advisor without there being some suspicion that there are ulterior motives, which really makes you ask, and if I were Rachel Maddow, I would have followed up, well, wait a second. If you couldn't give Joe Biden that kind of advice without him being suspicious of your ulterior motives, what other advice were you not able to give him as one of his closest advisors, if not his most closest advisor? Please do tell us, Madam Vice President. You realize how she's exposing herself as the fraud that she is, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure you caught that.
One is that it is unprecedented, right? To your point of what you said in your opening, we had a president of the United States running for re-election, 3.5 months from the election, decides not to run. The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years with 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
Right. So we already had that clip. We already blew that apart. So let's move on to the next round of lies, because that was her answer last night. This morning, her answer changed, specifically with regard to Joe Biden's ability to run for office and be president, and what she witnessed with regard to his decline. Check this whopper of a lie out.
My concern about him running for re-election was completely separate from my admiration and knowledge about his capacity to serve as president of the United States, which was consistent and never wavered.
Well, when we sit here, as we sit here today, do you think he would have been up for running the country for 4 more years?
Here's the distinction that I make. It's and having had the experience myself, it is one thing to have the capacity to govern. It is another thing to go through an election for president of the United States. So you are an athlete. You may appreciate this kind of metaphor. Running for president of the United States is like being in a marathon at a sprinter's pace with people throwing tomatoes at you every step you take. It is not for the lighthearted. It takes an incredible amount of endurance and stamina. And can you imagine doing it while you are also carrying literally the weight of the world as being president of the United States? So the distinction I make is about capacity to be president and what that election would require in that campaign, especially running against Donald Trump.
Okay, so let me just be clear as to what she just said, because that was kind of word salady, but I picked it up. It's harder to run for president than it is to be president. Running for president, you got to have a lot of stamina. You have to have energy. You got to be on your game. You have to be sharp as a tack. You got to be able to shift on the fly and be able to respond to things in real time. Come on. Being president, please. Hey, you're pretty much on autopilot. You can use the auto pen. You can just show up. They'll put everything on note cards in front of you. You never get challenged. The media never asks you questions. You can decide not to have any press conferences or even put yourself in a position where you have to answer any questions. Being president is a cakewalk. Running for president, now that's tough. I mean, I would think that the interviewer on ABC News might want to challenge that notion and press her on it. But of course, the terms of the conditions under which ABC News got this really important interview was that only the former football player could ask questions. The guy who spent his formative years getting hit in the head. These things don't happen by accident. Kamala Harris has also started to do the podcast circuit to sell her book. She's just that desperate. It's almost like she knows she's not going to get another job. So she's got to make her money while she can. And, well, did I mention word salad?
That day was a difficult day. And in many ways, after the election, I hadn't experienced the kind of pain I felt. The only thing I could really compare it to was when my mother died. And I was grieving for our country because I knew in my heart what this was going to mean and how it was going to affect so many people in a harmful way. But that day also, in so many ways, renewed my sense of understanding that the fight sometimes takes a while and we cannot take ourselves out of it. Let's everybody rest, everyone heal, take your time, be kind to yourself, but don't take yourself out the fight. Because we cannot let anyone, any election, any circumstance take away our spirit and our faith and our belief in knowing how we make a difference. And that difference, the difference we make may be that, it's about that child who is the neighbor's child who just looks up to you for something. It may be, the Sunday school class that you teach. It may be a friend who is in their time of need, or a family member. It may be somebody who is running for office right now, for local, state, or federal office. But do not let us not take ourselves out of the fight, because we are in it for righteous reasons.
That, my friends, is the word salad that we all knew and loved during the campaign. And honestly, part of me kind of missed. Two quick observations. The first, we've all used Zoom before, right? I think we're all pretty familiar with it. When you connect to a Zoom call, such as this, that got then recorded for a podcast, when you enter the room, you have to type in your name, right? And that's what shows up underneath your video screen. So she purposely decided to identify herself as VP Harris. You notice that? It's kind of weird, right? Wouldn't you put Kamala Harris or Kamala? I just find that fascinating, that when entering a Zoom chat for a podcast to sell your book, it's so precious to her to have that title in there. Don't you know who I am? I don't think you'll be hearing VP Harris ever sort of throwing in a tagline and saying, but you can call me Kamala. No. You will refer to me as Madam Vice President. Thank you very much. That's number one. Number two, I think that you would join me in watching all of these clips we've just enjoyed of Kamala Harris by taking a giant sigh of relief, reflecting on what our lives could have been like should things have gone a different direction back in November. But honestly, seeing all of this, it doesn't really hit home quite as hard as that feeling I felt while watching the Charlie Kirk Memorial on Sunday. Seeing our president, our vice president, and his cabinet reflecting on Charlie Kirk's life and his faith and the gospel, that's when it really hit home about what kind of leadership we have right now and what kind of leadership we might have had. I'll give you the perfect example. Do you remember during the campaign, those 107 days, at a rally, when Kamala Harris started talking about abortion, killing babies in the womb, somebody in the crowd started heckling and they started shouting, "Christ is King. Christ is King." Do you remember this moment? And Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, in responding to people proclaiming the gospel to her and to everyone in the room, replied like this.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Big laugh line. Oh, I'm sorry. You're Christians? You believe in God? In the salvation of Jesus Christ? You don't belong here. We don't want your kind. That's the leader we might have had. And then you reflect on Sunday And the president was great. And the vice president was great. And good God, Erica Kirk was amazing. But just for a quick moment, just for a quick dose of reality about who we have as our leaders in this nation right now at the highest levels of the Trump campaign and the Trump cabinet, just as a quick reflection about what we might have had, what we did have during the Biden years versus what we have right now. This is your Secretary of State.
One of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe, an all-powerful God, who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day, he rose unlike any mortal man. And to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return, and he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
Amen. All right, let's get to your super chats if we could while they're lining up. Angela, God bless you, Angela, $2 super chat. Can we get the UN out of the U.S.? Yeah, I don't think there's any permanent. And by the way, Trump has built a beautiful building right across from the UN or a block away from the UN. He knows the neighborhood very well, and he knows what that real estate is worth. That would be nice. Thank you, Angela. Stumble Boots, $2 super chat. Oh, I don't have my prop today. You're cool too. Thank you, Clippy. Barbara Duffy with a $10 super chat. Just dropping the mic on that. Thank you, Barbara. Throwing a little $10 in the tip jar. Thank you, Barbara, very much. Patrick with £5. Hi from your Birmingham. Birmingham, Barmy. Can we call it right? This is not migration. It's colonization by invasion and subjugation of the native people. No, you have a fine command of the English language. Not bad. Yes, well said. Angela, $5 super chat. I'll take Katie over world salad cackling clown who lied about the veggie and Jeep. I'd believe the Three Stooges over that. Love and respect, Katie. Yeah, Katie. I love that Katie Pavlich was all over that. Angela with a $2 super chat. Why do people still watch Mad Cow? It's all they've got. It's like therapy over there on that channel, Angela. A good question. Ball State alum with a $10 super chat. Well, Chardonnay Harris got to eat, Larry. I know. Listen, God bless her. We all got to do what we got to do to sell our book, I mean, I get it. She didn't have another job. I mean, I got 8 jobs, but I'm still selling my book. Have I mentioned my book lately? Got to eat. You know what? I paid my kids' tuition today for another semester at UCSD, so. It's called Shameless Liars. It's available hardcover, paperback, and audiobook on Amazon. Shameless Liars. All right. Richard Murray, $10 super chat. Harris didn't pick Buttigieg because he's gay, so she picked Walz. Am I the only one who sees irony in this? No, you are not. No, you are not. She's quite the judge, isn't she? Yep. God's best friend with £2 super chat. Happy New Year to me and all IDF veterans. Thank you for your service to the great nation of Israel. Absolutely happy New Year. It is. It's Rosh Hashanah, isn't it? So we used to call it, when I worked in New York, we'd call Rosh Hashanah Rosh Hashanah because all of our Jewish colleagues would have to leave home early before sunset. Get it? Paul Rust with a $5 Australian super chat. It's middle of the night down there, Paul. Hi, Larry. Thank you to your listeners for their prayers. I got sent home today. with an oxygen machine. Welcome home, Paul. That's fantastic. God bless. Well, we'll keep the prayers going. But that's a huge step forward. I just saw my uncle this weekend, actually. We had a mini family reunion, and he's got an oxygen machine with him, too. But getting out of hospital, he was in rehab, actually. And getting out with that was, it's so much more independence, Paul. So God bless you. You're in our prayers still. God's best friend with a £2 super chat, the capacity to delegate by auto pen. Yeah, exactly. Once you've won, being president's easy. Running for president, now that's hard. What an amazing line. Angela with a $2 super chat, heels up hairs, better beware of lightning bolts. Yeah, did you think she was lying a little bit? That's kind of like, what's it called? I think bearing false witness there. Patrick with £5 super chat, a better title for Kamala's book was shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah, it's all excuses, isn't it? Paul Rust with five more Australian dollars. Can you find out what Joe said to Melania while waiting for Marine One after Trump got sworn in? Kevin, are you familiar with that video?
I'm not. Maybe it's like a lip reading kind of thing.
We'll find it. We'll try to find it, Paul, but I'm not as familiar with it as you are. Angela, $2 super chat. Jesus is Lord. Thank God we got grace, not justice. Yeah, that memorial was you know what, guys? I would have loved to have been on yesterday, but I had a pre-scheduled day off with my family, with my brothers who were in from out of town, and we had a great weekend together. And in retrospect, I'm glad. I would have been a puddle yesterday with all the clips from the memorial. Some days I'm okay letting everybody else comment, and I can just be interior and just sort of that one clip from Marco Rubio was about the most I could take, honestly, and not lose it. Ethrogue with 18. What currency is that?
No idea.
That's a new one. Anyone in the chat? What currency is that? Hashem, thank you for November 24th miracle. Please give us all some common sense in this new year. Anyone know what that's cool. We got viewers everywhere. It is a worldwide platform.
Oh, it's the Israeli new shekel, the currency of Israel.
Of course, Hashem. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. And Happy New Year to you, my friend. God bless you. $10 super check sticker from Salty Pepper. Salty Pepper. I love that screen name. And I do love your avatar as well. That's a badass. That's a French bulldog, I think, isn't it? In it. All right, guys. Oh my gosh, another one. So true. £5 super chat. Oh, my Spandau Ballet cover band. We'd love to come to the USA and have a Spandau Ballet tour. It would be gold. Best wishes from the UK. I hate to break it to you. Spandau Ballet, obviously, global phenomenon. And I was in high school at the time. They did have 2 big hits, maybe. Let me just say they weren't as big here as they are in England. Like, for instance, I watch freaking BBC stuff a lot. I think I've mentioned that. The Meredith and I love, watching these the comedy shows are hilarious, and we watch them a lot. And you guys are always making Simply Red references, right? Because Simply Red was a thing for 25 years in England, right? Simply Red was like a year and a half phenomenon with 1 hit. I could be wrong. Spandau Ballet tribute band may be huge here. I don't know if you can sustain a U.S. tour, but we can talk. I might help hook you up with some venues. I'm willing to be wrong. So, could be wrong. ZG with the $10 super sticker. Thank you. Super sticker. Thank you for that, ZG. Appreciate the love very much, everybody. It's great to be back. Thanks for welcoming us back with such a huge audience. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. And, we've got more show as well. What am I doing? We've got more coming up right now. You know that one of the things we like to focus on this program is how your elected officials are trying their damnedest to make your life miserable. And longtime viewers of this program will remember a thing called the Marshall-Durbin Act coming out of the Senate, which was basically going to make your credit card transactions less safe and secure, and also screw with your rewards and your points that you like from your credit cards. And they keep trying to push this thing through. And because of your response, generally speaking, they've heard the loud message that they shouldn't touch with your credit cards and mess with these things. We wanted to get an update because it's rearing its ugly head. So we bring back our friend from Electronic Payments Coalition, Richard Hunt. And Richard, they just never learn, Richard. They're just dying to resurrect this zombie.
Yeah, Larry, great to be with you. They're back at it once again. Look, they know their bill cannot pass on a standalone bill. There's been zero hearings, zero regulatory briefings about this. So anytime a legislation is moving through the United States Senate, good old Dick Durbin, good old Roger Marshall of Kansas are up to their old tricks as we get close to Halloween once again. They're going to try and attach this bill that would, as you just said, would threaten the safety and security of your credit card, get rid of reward points, and hurt airlines across this country. They're going to try and attach their bill to the National Defense Authorization Act, something that has nothing to do with their jurisdiction. And they're going to try once again to try and attach it to something called the Clarity Act, a crypto bill. Look, they're losing every single time. Your viewers have reached out to their members of Congress. Some 4 million letters, Larry, have gone into the United States Congress saying, don't touch my credit card.
That's phenomenal. All right, y'all, you see the website down below, guardyourcard.com. That's where you can get activated again to send this message before they even think about doing this. Guardyourcard.com. You see it on the bottom of your screen. Go there, get all the information, inform yourself, and then do something about it. Let's walk backwards a second here, Richard, because this makes sense. First of all, it needs to be repeated. They've never had a public hearing on this. They want to pass this legislation that could endanger the security of our credit card transactions, and they have not had one public hearing. What are they afraid of, Richard?
Not one public hearing, not one regulatory briefing at all. You remember Sherrod Brown, the liberal Democrat Senate banking chairman from Ohio? He just got beat for re-election. Not even he would allow Dick Durbin to have a hearing in his committee because he knew how bad this would be, especially to his constituents in Ohio. So look, nothing whatsoever. And you remember, Larry, back in 2010, Dick Durbin, without any committee hearing, any committee markup, went to the floor of the Senate and got the debit 1.0 passed that did place price controls on debit cards. So it shows you how powerful one United States senator can be when they are being bought and paid for by the corporate mega stores. So we're not taking anything for granted. We're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to make sure that these 2 United States senators cannot go to the floor of the United States Senate at 3 o'clock in the morning and try and attach their bill onto this on behalf of the corporate mega stores. And look, the one promise, Larry, they made in 2010 is that they were going to pass the savings back to the consumers.
Yeah.
Did not happen. And now they're saying they're going to do the same thing again on credit cards. Like America really believes they're going to pass the so-called savings, which will threaten the security of your credit card, back to the consumers.
Well, by the way, Richard, there was one other thing they said about this Durbin Amendment back 15 years ago. I remember this vividly because I had a kid who we gave a debit card to our kid. And, if in case they had an emergency, they could use it for a transaction or store. And they said, those debit cards, those are ripe for fraud. And if there's any fraud on those debit cards, they could go after the money in your bank account. It's scary when you're a parent and you hear that sort of thing. It's like, okay, well, so they claimed that this would actually crack down on debit card fraud on these transactions. Did that ever happen? What ended up happening with regard to debit card fraud?
No, not a chance. And think about where the internet was back in 2010 to here in 2025. Now we have things called dark webs and dark secrets on the web. Yeah. So criminals across the globe, not just in the United States, but across the globe, each and every day try to hack in to people's financial statements, to their software programs. So we spend billions of dollars each and every year making sure your credit cards and debit cards are safe and secure. What they want to do is force companies to change the way they process credit cards and pay someone half the price to protect your data so they can make a few pennies on their end. America is much smarter than that. That's the last thing they want to happen. And they keep praising what Europe did and how interchange rates are lower there. Sure, their government came back with price controls. And what happened, Larry, when price controls happened in Europe? Interest rates went up, annual fees went up, fraud went up. The last thing you want are politicians trying to tell you how to process your credit card.
Richard, again, this is I hate these things because it's politicians trying to fix something that's not broke. Just this weekend, I was out of town with my brothers. I picked up the hotel rooms. So I went and checked us all in. I'm a very generous man, and my brothers are lowlifes. All right, so I'm checking in at the hotel room. True story, just happened to me. I get the first hotel room that's under my name. I give them my credit card. Transaction goes through, and I'm out of town, right, when I'm doing this. No problem. Second room, I give the same credit card, and suddenly the transaction didn't go through. I get a text message from my bank that says, hey, unusual activity. Is everything all right? Is that you? I replied yes, did the transaction again, and it went through. The system works right now. What are they trying to fix? It ain't broken, Richard.
No, it is the safest and most secure payment network in the world, not just the country, but the world. When you use your credit card and you swipe it, you feel very safe and you feel very secure about it. The last thing we need to be doing is cutting corners on your data and privacy matters. And that's what this bill would do. It happened in 2010. They're trying to do this again, all for the corporate megastores to save a few pennies. But we know what's going to happen. We know the criminals go to the least common denominator. They want us to process your credit card with a company, Larry, you ready for this? That does not exist today. It is a huge experiment with your credit card. Think about your credit card process with somebody that does not exist today. Visa and MasterCard spend billions of dollars making sure your data is safe and secure. What they're saying is, hey, bank, you got to go to somebody else outside of the person that has their name on your card. It's just ridiculous. I don't know why Dermot and Marshall want to do this. They're getting paid off by the big corporate mega stores. And thankfully, America has stopped them so far.
All right, one other aspect of this that really burns my you-know-whatsies, and that's how they're trying to push it through. Again, there's been no hearings on this. And then if it's such a great idea, then present the bill and let everybody vote on it so that we all know where everybody stands. But instead, they're attaching this to defense authorization. Defense authorization is for our military, for their pay, for their equipment, for their jets, for their ships, for their submarines. This has nothing to, what has this got to do with credit card transactions?
It's called desperation. Dick Durbin is retiring at the end of this year. He's trying to throw another Hail Mary. Roger Marshall has already told Walmart and the rest of them that he's going to try and get it passed. Look, not only the National Defense Authorization Act, Larry, they tried to get it attached to the Federal Aviation Administration bill a couple months ago. Now the crypto bill, they try to put it on the crypto bill as well. Again, they're just desperate, trying to do anything they can on behalf of the corporate mega stores, but we're fighting them back at every avenue.
All right. So when people go to guardyourcard.com, I've already gone there, but I'd love for you to sort of elaborate on the kind of information they get and how they can get involved here. So like we did last time, we can stop this before it even starts.
Yeah, go to guardyourcard.com and you have a tool there to contact your United States senator. And some 4 million folks have gone to guardyourcard.com. We've had Brian Kelly with the Points Guy also have millions of people contact their member of Congress as well. Look, those members of Congress want to hear from their constituents. So if you are in Kansas, something like that, and you press on Roger Marshall, he's going to get a letter. He wants to hear from the constituents, just like all the other 99 senators want to do so as well. So please do that right away. Get your voice in so they can hear that you are against your credit card being processed with an unsecured, untested, experimental network.
A non-existent network right now, actually. It's ridiculous.
That is correct.
Already working. And the
Larry,
banks.
the other thing, you just got a lot of miles when you went to Detroit to watch the Lions as well. So 50 million folks traveled in this United States not too long ago, last year, using miles. Think about the impact that has on tourism. You flew down. You also probably rented a car. You went to a hotel. You ate out, and you went to a football game. Think about the economic impact Reward Miles has been helping across the country, helping small businesses who rely on the credit card for safety and security, not only for recording transactions from their customer, but also these small businesses use their credit card to buy materials. They need float from time to time. I'd rather them use their credit card, now pay it off, than have to go to a payday lender.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm a miles junkie. The way I accrue my miles now, I remind myself of those ladies who used to have the stack of coupons at the grocery store and hand them all out. That's how I am with my miles, and that's what it makes it even more despicable that these politicians tried to attach this to the FAA authorization, but considering the airlines are against it. That's so insulting. All right, so everybody, do what you can. Help us out here. And get to guardyourcard.com. You see it right there. Go there, get the information. We have a very intelligent, very informed, and very motivated audience here. And just a few emails are a click away for you right now to make sure that your elected officials respond to you. This is still our country. They're still supposed to respond to us. So make sure you do that. And just like you did last time, this became an issue. Richard, any other closing thoughts here before we wrap this up?
Yeah, let's get those 4 million letters to 5 million as soon as possible, because this bill, this NDAA, could come up for a vote any day now. Congress is in a recess right now. They are back next week, so they could address it then. And then the Clarity Act could go to a Senate markup sometime in October. That'll be the next attempt. So please don't waste any time while your United States Senator is supposedly back in your state. Call them up right now. Go to guardyourcard.com. Let's take action now.
Don't mess with my miles and don't screw up my secure credit card transactions. It's that simple. Richard, thank you. And thanks for all the great work you're doing at Electronic Payments Coalition. Big deal.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
That is it for today's program. Thank you for watching. It means the world to us. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. And we'll get back next time, same place. We'll see you. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.